Strategic governance is aligning what you do and how you do it with where you want to go and what you want to achieve. And any governance structure needs to be adaptable and flexible so that it doesn't create a rigid tick the box mentality when you look at governance. So governance is the vehicle you create, or you govern the vehicle that you want to use to achieve your goal. So you'd have a different looking vehicle if you wanted to go from one city to another city and you've got a highway, versus going from where you are now to the center of Africa where you have no highways and where you have no infrastructure to get you there. So depending on what your strategy is and where you want to go and what you want to achieve and be known for in the market, that determines actually the kind of infrastructure or the kind of vehicle you build to get where you want to go. Strategic governance is not a set of checklists. It's not doing everything in your final report so that it looks nice and glossy, and so that it's not creating reports that you're creating just for the people who read the report. It's not pushing a set of papers around. It's not trying to do what someone else is doing in your organization, especially if it's a very different organization. It's also not just getting people on board who just, as I said, want to check the boxes. So it's not overly legal, it's not overly financial. It's about taking into account all the different stakeholders in a business, seeing who needs to be taken into account, whose interests you are guarding. See, business has moved from just making money and being subject to shareholders who need profits and dividends. Now a business has to run with a view to everybody impacted by the business. What would normally happen, or what would often happen, is you'd have personality-driven meetings. So people would just merely assent to what the dominant person, be they the CEO, be they the chairperson, or anyone else in the business. So they would simply just say, almost a bunch of yes men and women. Often they would also be very unrepresentative. So they would be typically, without being negative about accountants and lawyers, but they would typically be overly accounting orientated and overly legal orientated. What you're seeing moving in business today is your CEO figure is moving from being a purely financial person to being a generalist. Someone who's not just good with the numbers, but also good with taking other people or other stakeholders into account. It would be meetings that would be overly formal, where there's not much interaction between parties. Those kind of things. It would be your typical symptom at a lower level in the organization would be where people would say, yes, that's how they want us to do it, but this is how we actually do it. So someone is inducted into the corporate policy framework and the corporate structure and told these are the rules, and when they actually start their job, the person says, oh, we don't do it that way. This is how we do it. Then you've got a major problem between your policy framework. Policies are the primary tool of governors in a business. That's how they create the space for people to know what to do, and the limits, the edges of what people need to do. And so when that policy framework doesn't actually enable people to do what they must do, then there's a problem.